Alright, hello everybody, welcome to RBY Pokemon Challenges. We are in episode 9 of our Brock Minimum Battles series, and we are very close to the end. We've already tested 121 Pokemon against Brock, and we're getting into the last 30, which are really the top Pokemon of Generation 1. Today, we're going to see a lot of Pokemon that are absolute stars in the Generation 1 metagame when we talk about competitive Pokemon. But do they hold up in a challenge starting at level 5, fighting against Brock at the beginning of the game? We're about to find out. So, first, let's go ahead and say, if you have not subscribed yet, if you have not liked our videos, you haven't seen the previous 8 episodes, you might not know who's gotten through, who hasn't gotten through. This is not going to be the end. Yeah, we have 2 more episodes of Brock, but after that we move on to Misty, Lieutenant Surge, all the way through the middle game, Celadon, Sabrina, Erica, Koga, Blaine, before hopefully getting a good set of Pokemon all the way to the end of the game with the Elite Four, and hopefully being able to beat the rival with minimum battles. So, why did we start this challenge? Minimum battles is a way to make sure that all Pokemon start out on a level playing field. There is no grinding, there's no, oh, I failed, so I'll just go back and level my Magikarp up to level 30 so that I can beat Brock. No, we're going to play the game in an efficient and effective and strategic way where we say, okay, what's the best moveset that we could have at this point for whatever challenge is in front of us? What's the best strategy that we could use? And if we're using the best strategy and we can't get through, alright, that Pokemon is out. Okay? It makes better content for you guys, it's a lot more fun for me to play, and it avoids wasting everybody's time with, yeah, just grind and level up and use items and all that nonsense. So we're going to use no items in battle, only our 1 Pokemon for that run in battle. When we get to later stages, yeah, we'll have some HM Pokemon, but they won't be used in the fights. And we're just going to focus on what is the best strategy or what is the best moveset that we could use to get through. We will give all of the Pokemon max DVs to give them the best chance of getting through, but I think we'll see today that even with that, some of these Pokemon are going to struggle. So up till now, we've tested 121 Pokemon, and 61 Pokemon have been able to beat Brock. We're just a sliver above 50%. And most of the Pokemon that have beaten Brock can do it in a couple of ways. They can have a special type move, really any special type move, even if it's not super effective, absolutely crushes Brock. Geodude and Onix don't have great special, and so moves like Ember, even, which are not super strong against his Pokemon, it's resisted, but Ember was good enough to get through his Pokemon because burns plus special damage allowed these Pokemon to do decent amounts of damage. We'll see that a couple times, I think, today. We've also seen Pokemon get through with wrap-based strategies, because his Pokemon, especially the Geodude, are very slow. If we can get enough wraps off in a row, we can end up getting through. We saw that with Lickitung last time. Of course, Pokemon with super effective ground and fighting type moves were able to get through with no problem. But the last thing that we've really seen is that Pokemon that have good debuff moves. So, for example, a combination of a strong attack with Tail Whip, a combination of a stalling attack like Leech Seed together with Growl. In the case of Execute and Exeggutor, the combination of Hypnosis and Barrage, a multi-turn or a multi-hit move, were enough to be able to eventually get through Brock, even though it wasn't particularly easy to do so. So, Today, we are moving on to some really awesome challengers. We have Mr. Mime, Scyther, Jynx, Electabuzz, Magmar, Pinsir, Tauros, Magikarp, Gyarados, Lapras, Ditto, Eevee, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon. We are getting one of the weakest Pokemon in Generation 1 in Magikarp, but we are offsetting that with some really top-tier Pokemon. Jolteon, Lapras, Gyarados, Tauros. These Pokemon really help to kind of set the metagame when we're talking about competitive Pokemon. Jolteon's incredibly fast. It's got a nice moveset. Gyarados is bulky, strong. It gets great attack. Lapras is a absolute tank and has an awesome moveset. It can use Psychic. It can use Thunderbolt. It can use all kinds of awesome moves. And then Tauros is really the king of Generation 1 competitive meta because of its super high critical hit rate, combined with Body Slam, Hyper Beam, Earthquake. It can take out just about anything that stands in its way. So that's the way these Pokemon fare in competitive Pokemon. But we're not in competitive Pokemon today. Today, we're doing a playthrough of the game on minimum battles. And we're going to have to see if the movesets of these Pokemon do anything to help them out when we actually come up against Brock. So, without further ado, let's jump into our game. We've already got the game loaded up with our first Pokemon, Mr. Mime, and we're going to see how he does against Brock. So I'm just going to go ahead and start my new game here. And we went through, so let's make this guy Gary. Okay. So, as stated, we will play with Pokemon right now with max DVs. My current plan is that after we finish the whole game, we're going to go back with the Pokemon that were able to beat the game on minimum battles and try them again with minimum DVs. So they're just going to have 0 DVs in every stat and see how they do. The idea is that if they have minimum DVs, perhaps they'll be weak enough that some Pokemon that could get through will no longer be able to get through. Now, for Mr. Mime, we can see that he starts out with Barrier and Confusion, which we've seen every Pokemon that has Confusion be able to beat Brock so far, and Barrier is really just a good support move. It will allow us to up our defense. So if it looks marginal at all, if it looks like we're having any sort of struggles, because it's not like Mr. Mime is the most tanky Pokemon, we'll be able to use that to increase our chances of getting through, I think. So Mr. Mime already is set up perfectly to have a good Brock run here. And I am playing on an emulator here on my PC, but otherwise the ROMs are just randomized with the Ultimate Pokemon Randomizer, and that's it. We don't do any changes to items or anything like that. Trainer types, trainer levels. You can do all of that with the Ultimate Pokemon Randomizer, but in these runs, all I've done is changed the starting Pokemon. So the rival will always still carry his Eevee, but we will change our starter to whatever Pokemon we want to use in the run. So let's see if we can get through Radiant Force fairly quickly here. I can't wait to get Repels later in the game. Okay, here we are against the Bug Catcher, and we can see it's a 2-hit KO against his Caterpie. Now, Mr. Mime's not leveling up a lot. It's only at level 6 at this point. We're going to see that a lot more with these Pokemon. If you recall, some of the early game Pokemon were already at level 8 when we reached Brock, because they're part of the medium-slow level-up group. In this case, Mr. Mime is part of the medium-fast level-up group, but these Pokemon won't actually overtake the medium-slow group until about level 68, if I recall correctly. So, for most of the game, they're actually going to underperform or be under-leveled relative to the medium-slow level-up group, which is a little odd. But basically what it means is that they start off gaining XP very slowly, but later in the game they ramp up the pace at which they grow XP. So that's why they're medium-fast. But we can see right there, Mr. Mime, it's really just 3 confusions against the Geodude, 3 confusions against the Onix, and we're through. It wasn't even really a challenge. So, Mr. Mime is our first Pokemon, and it is through the game. Now, Scyther is our next Pokemon, and Scyther really came into its own in Generation 2. There was some attempt here in Yellow version to make Scyther better by giving it access to Wing Attack, which it could then learn via level up, which gave it a stab move, by giving it a stab flying type move. But bug types in Generation 1 are really not that great because they don't get a lot of moves. When you think about the bug type, they get, of course, Leech Life, which is learned by Paris and Parasect, but also by Pokemon like Zubat and Golbat, which doesn't really do much for them. They get Pin Missile and Twin Needle, which are basically exclusive moves of Beedrill. And then String Shot, which, yeah, all the Viridian Forest Pokemon can get. But outside of that, there's not really any bug-type moves, and there's certainly nothing strong for our Scyther to use. Now, what our Scyther does have going for it is that it has fairly good stats, and Brock will not have any Rock-type attacks, so we won't have to worry about the 4 times effective Rock Throw, for example, against us. But the fact that we only have Quick Attack is not great. I mean, it's slightly better than having Tackle, and it's going to be resisted, so we're just going to have to see, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work out. If we could have a move like Generation 2's Fury Cutter, of course, this would be a pretty good opportunity for Scyther, but Fury Cutter does not exist in this generation. So I always thought that it was really just a shame that there's so many normal type moves, but the developers really didn't do a lot of types any favors because they didn't put decent moves in for them. Fighting type sticks out. Dragon type sticks out. The only dragon type move is Dragon Rage. Ghost type. The only attacking ghost type moves are Nightshade and Lick, and we all know that Lick is not very powerful. So you ended up with these types that should have some place in the metagame, but because they are so limited in their movesets, they just fail. Let's look at this Brock fight. So we're taking a second attempt at Brock here. And Geodude's doing 5 damage to us, and we can see we're doing like 1 damage to the Geodude with our Quick Attack. And right there, that's enough for us to say that Scyther is out of this competition. There's just no way that we're going to get Geodude to miss like 29 times in a row so that we can get through with decent health and then take out the Onix, which is going to use Bide, and we're going to be hitting it, and it's going to deal damage back to us. There's just no way that this is ever going to get through without just the stupidest amount of luck in the world. And we've seen that pretty consistently from all of these Pokemon. So we're going to go ahead and take Scyther out of the competition. Now, next up is Jynx. And Jynx I'm a little interested to see, because Jynx is going to start off with Lovely Kiss, which is like Hypnosis, but I believe it's slightly more accurate than Hypnosis. But its only other move is going to be Pound. And Jynx is not a physical attacker, so it's not like Jynx's Pound is going to be super powerful. We had a similar run earlier with Drowsy, where Drowsy started out with Hypnosis and Pound. And sure, so yeah, we would put the Geodude to sleep, but then Pound would be doing so little damage that by the time that Geodude woke up, we were basically back to just doing almost no damage and taking damage because Hypnosis is not 100% accurate. So we're going to have to see if Jynx can get better luck, basically. Because I expect that his Pounds are only going to be doing like 1 damage. And so then the other issue that we're going to have is that at some point, we'll have enough Pounds to get through the Geodude, even if we're only doing 1 damage. The Geodude only has 29 HP. But if we are up against the Onix after that, and we're only doing 1 damage per hit to the Geodude, we're getting through to Onix with like, what, 6 Pounds remaining? And at that point, we're going to have to end up using Struggle against Onix. And Struggle, of course, is not that good because we're going to be doing damage to ourselves. And it's basically, in this generation, like half the damage that you deal is dealt back to you. So even if we're doing 1 damage, we're just going to take 1 damage back. Plus, Onix knows Bind, Onix knows Screech, Onix knows Bide. So when we're using our struggles, we'll just be taking damage. So this is going to be a tough run. We're going to have to give it a couple attempts to see if it looks like it's possible. If we can get through the Geodude, there's always the chance that Onix just uses terrible moves. But we just have to see. So here we are with Jynx. We're going to start off with Lovely Kiss. And Brock uses full heals retroactively every time you put him to sleep. And we've used all of our Lovely Kisses now. And we can see that Pound is doing next to nothing, and we're taken out. Let's try another attempt. Let's see if we can get a little more luck. So that's a first turn. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Lovely Kisses off. So now at least it's going to stay asleep. And it woke up, so let's Lovely Kiss again. It woke up. And we're out of Lovely Kisses. So probably the bigger issue here than just that Lovely Kiss is not 100% accurate is that we only start off with 10 PP in Lovely Kiss. So we've only got 1 Lovely Kiss left right now. I think it's pretty clear that Jynx is a powerful Pokemon. It has its niche in competitive Pokemon, but it's just not strong enough to get through Brock, and thus it's out of there. I expect that Electabuzz is going to be more of the same. Because Electabuzz, yet again, its attacking move that it can use is just going to be Quick Attack, I believe. And if Scyther couldn't get through using Quick Attack, then why would Electabuzz be any different? But let's just give it a shot. Let's see what we get. So there's an Electabuzz, cool. We're gonna get it in Oak's Lab, also cool. Let's see what Electabuzz starts with here. So we start off with Quick Attack and Leer. Now, Leer could be useful. It's really gonna depend on how much damage we can resist from the Geodude. If we were playing in red and blue, then Geodude can use Defense Curl, which doesn't really do that much if we're already just doing 1 damage. But if we're in this generation, yellow version, then Geodude only knows Tackle. So it's always going to hit us with Tackle no matter what we do. So there's no chance for it to just kind of waste moves. If you think about it, if we're already just doing 1 damage per turn to Geodude and it uses Defense Curl, as long as it doesn't result in the situation where we're doing less than 1 damage, which can happen. We've already seen it with Weedle using Poison Sting, for example, that it did so little damage because it was resisted that it actually did 0 damage, so every single attack would just miss against Brock. But provided that we're not in that situation, using Defense Curl is the same as missing an attack against us, right? But in this situation, on the other hand, we wouldn't be able to use Leer to set up anyway if it had Defense Curl, but it never uses Defense Curl here because it only knows Tackle, so we end up in the situation where we're just taking hits every single turn. We're only at level 6 with Electabuzz, so we're not as strong as some other Pokemon that have been this far. And we have to just hope that we can tank enough damage from Geodude in order to make this possible. So let's try it. We'll start off with a couple of Leers, and we're already down to 11 HP. And we can see that that was like 3 Leers, and we're basically doing nothing. So that's 4 Leers, and we can see we do that little sliver of damage to Geodude. So again, this is one of those spots where without Geodude missing an insane number of times with Tackle, there's just no way that we're going to get through with Electabuzz. So Electabuzz, again, it's out of there. Let's move on now to Magmar. And Magmar starts with Ember, if I recall correctly. And the reason that that is important is because we've already beaten Brock with a lot of fire types that had Ember. The disadvantage that Magmar is going to have, however, is, if I recall correctly, its only move at the start of the game is Ember. And other Pokemon, Ninetales, Arcanine, Charmeleon, Charizard, they always had some other moves that they could use. They could use Tail Whip, they could use Growl, they could use Roar, etc. So that when the Onix used Bite, we could effectively waste turns against Onix. We didn't have to deal damage to Onix and take Bite damage in return. And that was good for us, because any turn that we can get him to use Bide and not take damage, we can just wait for the Bide to run out and then attack him again, number one. And number two, we prevent ourselves from just knocking ourselves out effectively by dealing damage to the Onix when it's using Bide. We've seen that with Pokemon that were able to get through the Geodude, but then they get to the Onix and they just get taken out by Bide because they don't have any way to effectively waste turns against him. So that's where this run is going to be a little bit interesting. Now, we very likely need to get burns off in the first couple turns against the Geodude. Burn is kind of special in that it not only inflicts status, which will cause Brock to use a retroactive full heal every time, but on top of that, it actually lowers his attack stat. And that's why so many Pokemon that no Ember have been able to get through, is because lowering the attack of the Geodude goes a long way towards helping us survive the repeated tackles of the Geodude. If we can get the first 1 or 2 turns with burns, we're actually going to have a decent shot of getting through. So, right now we can see that it's doing about 6 damage per hit to us. So, let's see if we can get a run where we get a burn off on Geodude. See, we can already see that we're getting its HP pretty low, so a burn will go a long way towards getting us through this fight. We are not getting any burn luck so far, though. And there we were knocked out. I don't think we've gotten a single burn yet. Okay, there we got a burn. And he uses full heal. Oh, we got another burn. And he uses full heal. And look at that. Now his tackle is only doing 2 damage to us. Now we got another burn and we've knocked out the Geodude. So now we want to get some burns off on this Onix. Now the big issue here is that we don't have anything else other than Ember to use against the Onix when it uses Bide. Used a 3-turn Bide and we took ourselves out effectively. Okay, there's a burn on Geodude. There's another burn on Geodude. And we're going to get through with a lot more HP because the Geodude has been burned. We've got 17 HP now. Level up, we're up to 23 HP. And we burned the Onix first turn. Okay. We burned the Onix again. And unfortunately, it took us out. It just took us out. So we can see that this looks like it's going to be possible. It's really just a matter of getting some misses, getting some burns off. That was so close even without a burn. But we really need to burn Geodude. So, okay, first turn burn. That's exactly what we wanted to see. There's another burn, and he's knocked out. Okay. Okay, a 2-turn Bide, and we just survived, but then Onix took us out with Tackle. The point is that this battle is clearly possible. It's just about luck. So, we're fine with an attack miss. Okay, we got through. We really just want a 2-turn Bide, and that didn't work out. Okay. Okay, we got the burn off. Okay, we survived. And we got taken out. Okay. We're getting closer in some ways, but that one run was probably the closest that we've been But okay, we're back to Onyx. Use Bide, use Screech. Use Bide. It's burned, but too late. Okay. Okay, not quite. We are just not getting much burn luck with this Magmar here. Let's see another attempt here. Okay, there's a burn. Okay, taken out. And he just goes straight for Bide. Ah, man, that's terrible. Like, we just need to have Onyx use not Bide for a couple turns and get burned maybe 1 or 2 times. And for whatever reason, it seems like Arcanine and Ninetales got more burns off than this Magmar's getting. And maybe that was just luck, maybe that was just variance, but Magmar seems to really struggle getting burns off here. We could almost just reset if we don't get like a burn off in the first 3 hits or something. Okay, there's a burn. Okay, we're through with 20 HP. Oh, there's a burn. Oh, there's another burn. And now we really want it to just use like tackle. And we're through. Okay, we got it. So the key with Magmar is just getting the burns off against Brock. And that's been true of basically all fire-type Pokemon. They just need to get burns off, and they're able to get through. So, good work there, Magmar. And we are moving on to Pinsir. Now, Pinsir was a Pokemon that I actually really liked in the first generation. There was an episode of the Pokemon anime where Ash was in Viridian Forest and he comes against a trainer who has a Pinsir. And he decides to send out Metapod and use Harden in order to prevent the Pinsir's Vice Grip from working. Of course, that's very anime-like, and not any sort of strategy. But there was also a battle with Ash in Viridian Forest where it was his Metapod against another Metapod, just using Harden repeatedly to see who could become harder. So the anime had some really unrealistic stuff. But Yellow version is supposed to be somewhat based on the anime. Of course, in the normal playthrough of this version, you would have a Pikachu following you around. You get a lot of Pokemon that Ash got, so you can pick up a Bulbasaur, a Charmander, a Squirtle, just through the story. But I had really hoped, before the game came out, that there would be a Pinsir in Viridian Forest, because it was part of the anime, and Pinsir is, I think, the coolest looking of the bug-type Pokemon. I could give you that Scyther is pretty cool looking too. I mean, it's got scythes for arms, but so does Kabutops, so that's not really as special. Whereas having big pincers on the top of your head is something that's pretty much unique just to Pinsir, and It's, I mean, a powerful Pokemon. It really felt to me more like a fighting bug type, is how I always thought of it in my mind. I know it's just pure bug, but it learns so many fighting type moves that I always thought it should be a fighting bug type. But the issue, as we talked about before, is that these Pokemon don't get any really good bug type moves in this generation. And Vice Grip, even though it's incredibly strong, as we can see, we're in a slow level up group here. So we've just leveled up to level 6 against the Bug Catcher in Viridian Forest. We're going to be level 6 with a resisted move against Geodude, and no way to inflict status or debuffs or anything. So it really just comes down to, can we power our way through? Let's check if Vice Grip will be enough. As we can see, it looks like we might be doing 2 damage to the Geodude, but Geodude's doing 5 damage every turn to us. And as we can see, we just can't keep up in the damage race here. We would need this Geodude to miss maybe 5 or 6 times to have any shot of getting through. We're getting it to about 50% HP. That's not incredibly likely in any run. So because of that, I think Pinsir is out of there. Let's move on to Tauros. Now, Tauros, I actually saw very recently in a versus run, Tauros versus Kangaskhan, that was played by Scott's Thoughts. So I think that we all probably have an idea of how Tauros is going to do here. Tauros is the definitive, competitive, non-Uber Pokemon of Generation 1. Because the fact that it has Stab Body Slam and Stab Hyper Beam, it can use Blizzard, and it can use Earthquake. So even if you bring in a Rhydon or a Golem to try to deal with it, it has the ability to use those special types of moves, or those super effective types of moves, in order to get through. That's all late game. That's all after you get to Celadon City, and you can get TMs, and you can really customize your Pokemon's movesets. Right here, at the start of the game, at level 5, our Tauros only knows Tackle. It does not know any sort of debuffing move like Growl or Tail Whip that could even possibly help it. We've never seen a Pokemon in this entire challenge so far. So out of 120 Pokemon that we've played through Brock with so far, we've never seen a Pokemon that could get through Brock on minimum battles using Tackle. We've seen other normal type moves get through, but typically those moves were multi-hit moves. So moves like Barrage and Fury Attack, combined with some sort of status or some sort of debuff, were able to get through. And we've seen much stronger moves, moves like Bite or Stomp, be able to get through, because of the fact that those moves have good base damage. Nidoqueen was using Body Slam in order to get through. That is not the case for this Tauros. This Tauros is only level 6, and it only knows Tackle, which is not a great move. So we're going to try a run, but it looks like our Tackle is doing less damage than the Vice Grip before for Pinsir. We're only doing 1 damage, even though we have Stab. And the Geodude is doing 6 damage to us every single turn. The sheer number of times that we would need a miss from Geodude means that this run is over. Tauros is out of there. Let's move on to everyone's favorite Generation 1 Pokemon. The Pokemon that you could buy for 500 Pokédollars just before Mount Moon from a shady merchant. And I always did when I was a kid. And the reason I did was because I learned that Magikarp can become one of the strongest Pokemon in the game if you just patiently leveled it up by switching it out until it learns Tackle, and then after it learns Tackle, going back and grinding forever to take out other Pokemon. This, in fact, used to be how I would use my rare candies before Misty, is I would use my rare candies to get the last 2 levels to get my Gyarados before I fought Misty. But here, we know Splash. And obviously that's not effective. There's no way we're going to beat the rival there. But that's okay. We're going to move on. We're going to see if our Magikarp on minimum battles can beat Brock for the memes. Okay? Because if Brock can somehow miss, he's gonna have to already miss about 35 times against us with Tackle for us to use up all of our splashes. Or, 40 times for us to use up all our splashes. Then he's also gonna have to miss every single turn so that we can use Struggle to take him out. And then we're gonna have to hope that we level up and get decent amounts of HP against Onix, so that then we can struggle against Onix. And Onix is also going to have to miss every single turn. So, clearly, this is a run with a shot, right? Clearly, we have an amazing chance to get through on this run. So let's fight a bug catcher, and we use Splash. And there's our run. We cannot beat the bug catcher in Viridian Forest, which means we cannot even progress to Brock. As expected, Magikarp, he has the willpower, but he doesn't have the firepower, and Magikarp is out of there. So let's actually get serious. Let's use a legitimate Pokemon in Gyarados. Gyarados is a Pokemon that Yellow version does 0 favors to. And we've seen this already with some other Pokemon, but in Red and Blue, Gyarados starts out with an absolutely insane moveset. Regardless of what level you catch a wild Gyarados at, if you can get a Gyarados, it will start off with Dragon Rage, Hydro Pump, Bite, and Tackle. Those moves are insane for the early game in Red and Blue. But in Yellow version, they added the ability to catch a wild Gyarados in Saffron City. You just get the same house where you can get the good rod, you go to the pond behind that house with a super rod, and you can catch yourself a wild Gyarados. Because of that, they had to nerf its moveset. You can't have a level 15 Gyarados caught wild with Hydro Pump, right? So this Gyarados starts with Tackle. We can see that it has good attack, it does decent damage, but Tackle puts us in the same bind as we were with Tauros. Now, this is something that is kind of a theme in Yellow version, being kind of the definitive version of Generation 1, is that some Pokemon that had absolutely broken movesets in red and blue. So if you were doing this same sort of challenge in red and blue, Gyarados would be a shoo-in. It would be an awesome Pokemon to start off this kind of challenge with. Because when you get to Brock, you wouldn't even need to worry about the inaccuracy of Hydro Pump. You would just use Dragon Rage twice, and his Pokemon would go down. You'd get to Misty, you'd use Dragon Rage, maybe 2 Dragon Rages on the Starmie, and it would be down. Against Lieutenant Surge, well, water isn't resisted by electric, so you would be able to use a move like Hydro Pump to possibly one-hit the Raichu, but certainly to get it into a decent range. And against Erika, by the time you got to Celadon, you would be able to get Ice Beam, and Ice Beam plus the fact that she would only do neutral damage because of the flying type on Gyarados would set you up very nicely to get through that. There are no other gym leaders that really pose a huge threat to Gyarados. So Gyarados is a shoo-in for a minimum battles run in red and blue version. In yellow version, they had to nerf it because it's catchable in the wild, and it never was in yellow version. Okay, here we see that we've come to this battle without healing, which was a mistake. Let's reload, and we're going to go out. We're going to heal very quickly because we need all the PP that we can get, and we need all the HP that we can get. But I think even that first battle showed pretty clearly what this fight's going to be like. We can use Tackle, and we might be doing 2 damage, but that doesn't do us any favors when the Geodude uses Tackle, and it does 6 damage. 5 or 6 damage, depending on the turn. Gyarados, if this was red and blue, shoo-in. But because it's yellow version, Gyarados is out of there. That's a shame. Let's move on to another water-type Pokemon, in Lapras. Lapras, when I was a kid, I never realized just how strong Lapras was because of the fact that it was available so late in the game at a fairly low level. You didn't get Lapras until the Rocket storyline in Saffron City, where you would have to beat rival number 5, in order to get the Lapras given to you as a gift by a random Silphco employee that's sitting in that room. And that's all good and fine, but I never realized how good Lapras was, because even when I was playing Pokemon Stadium, and Lorelei always uses Lapras, it's her ace, I always had electric-type Pokemon. Jolteon was one of my favorite Pokemon that could just shred through the Lapras, and that was the end of it, right? But Lapras for early game is an awesome Pokemon to have. Because think about Lapras's moveset here. It's going to start off with Water Gun, of course, which is going to make Brock a piece of cake. I expect that Brock is going to be... each of his Pokemon are going to be 1 or 2 hits. We've already seen that Bubble is enough to get through Brock, so Water Gun should really just make this piece of cake run. But then we also have to consider that when we get to Misty, we may have Sing by the time we get to Misty. And that will enable us to hopefully put her to sleep and be able to do some damage. And because we're a bulky water type, because we have a lot of defense and a lot of HP, she's going to be stuck using moves like Tackle against us, and it's not going to do a lot of damage. And moves like Bubble Beam are going to be resisted. So we'll have a chance there. And of course, if we can't beat Misty immediately upon reaching Cerulean City, what we can do instead is we can go north to Bill. After getting the SSN ticket, we can even go south to Vermilion City, complete the SSN, just to gain a few more levels. And even if we don't have a great moveset, just the opportunity to gain more levels before Misty should help. Plus, we could even try some bide strategies once we get there, and possibly some paralysis-based strategies if we're able to learn Thunder Wave, which I believe we are. So, because of that, Lapras has a good chance. Here we see that both of Brock's Pokemon are one-hits. We reach level 8 at the end of all this, and Lapras, it doesn't level up quickly. That will be one of its disadvantages as we go through the game, but it's going to get access to an amazing moveset. If it can get through Misty and get to Celadon City, at that point its moveset's going to open up a ton, and we're going to have a really great Pokemon for the later game. So, Lapras, 2 hits and it's through. The next Pokemon in our list today is Ditto. And Ditto, if it's going to have any shot, absolutely needs to have max DVs, because Ditto is ultimately going to end up using Struggle. The reason that we know it's going to end up using Struggle is because when it uses Transform, it only gets 5 PP in each attack. So it has serious PP problems, would say 5-year-old's tale. So, because we have very low PP in all of our attacks, we're going to transform into the Geodude and promptly use up our 5 tackles on the Geodude. That's not going to be enough to get through Geodude, of course. So, we are going to have to then use Struggle repeatedly in order to get through. Sorry, we have to actually reset because I did not save before the Eevee, which I should have. But we're going to have to use Struggle against Geodude at some point, because we're going to use up those 5 tackle PP. The other disadvantage that we have is that while we'll have the same stats as Geodude, we will not have the same HP. So we need to have higher HP, given that we'll be damaging ourselves and being damaged by the Geodude. So if we have less than 29 HP, we can pretty much already say that this is a loss. And there we go, we got through the Eevee, finally, on second attempt. But, yeah, anything less than the HP of the Geodude, we're just not going to be able to get through, because you got to think, Geodude's going to be damaging us every turn with Tackle. And we're going to have to use Struggle, so we're going to be taking damage from our Struggle, plus taking damage from Geodude's Tackle. Whereas Geodude just uses Tackle every single turn, so it's not doing any sort of recoil damage to itself. Even if we get through the Geodude, then we're going to have enough HP to get through Onix, because when we get to Onix, we're only going to have Struggle. So that already tells us that this run is very likely not going to be possible. We would really love it if there was some way to cause Brock to put Onix out first, but that's just not possible in these games. Unlike other versions of Pokemon games where they might choose the next Pokemon based on what's the strongest or what's the most effective against you, in this version of the game, the opponent always just uses the same set Pokemon every time. And there we see that even Caterpie was able to take us out. Again, Caterpie is a Pokemon that we're going to have to use Struggle against, because we're going to use up our 5 tackles and we're not going to get through the Caterpie in 5 tackles, so I'm already pretty sure that this run is not possible at this level. I'm pretty sure we would have to level up pretty significantly in order to get through. Let's save right here just so that we can try to get through Caterpie. Okay, we run out of PP on tackle, and it tackled us down. So 3, 4, 5. Now we need to use our string shots up. Okay, now we're struggling, but we took ourselves out. Like, we need good string shot luck here. We need Caterpie to think that string shot is a good move, which of course it is not, but there we take ourselves out. This battle will be possible with enough attempts. It's just a matter of, okay, there we don't have enough HP to take it out. There we don't have enough HP left to take it out. We just need Caterpie, the opposing Caterpie, to get really obsessed with using String Shot. And fortunately, the bug catchers are not smart AI, so they can just sit there and use String Shot repeatedly. But there again, we don't have enough HP left to take out the Caterpie. I always felt like String Shot should be like a dual effect move, where it like reduces the opponent's attack and speed, for example. Because think about it, if you're bound up in string, you would have a hard time attacking your opponent, which in theory would mean that you would do less damage. But of course that's not how the developers thought. And there we got taken out. Okay, we've got it to orange health. We just need... Come on, Caterpie. Use String Shot. Okay, and we finally got through his Caterpie. As we can see, we're still just sitting at level 6, and we only have 27 HP. So, let's go to Geodude. Let's see how this runs, because there's always the possibility that we get insane, like, critical hit luck with our tackles, but not too hopeful here. So as we can see, tackle's doing like 1 HP of damage, and now we're using struggle, and we're basically taking 2 damage per turn, and we don't even get it down to half health. That's pretty much as I expected. Ditto's just not going to get through because it doesn't have enough HP. So, that's another Pokemon out of there. So, now that we're through all the rest of these Pokemon, we get to some of the most popular Pokemon of Generation 1 in the Eevee line. And I have to admit that the only evolution that I ever personally liked was Jolteon. I liked Jolteon because it was fast. Because of its high speed, it has an incredible critical hit rate. And it's able to use Thunder-type attacks, but it's also able to learn Pin Missile. It's one of the only non-bug types to learn a bug-type move and not have Psychic be super effective against it, right? Because, yeah, you can get Leech Life with Golbat and Zubat, but they're poison types, so whenever your opponent uses Psychic against you or Confusion against you, you're going to get taken out very quickly. Pin Missile, even though it's a very weak attack, was always a good counter to an Alakazam coming in. Because Alakazam cannot just easily switch in, on it because it likely is carrying Pin Missile and could at least do decent damage if it gets like a 5-hit Pin Missile off. Especially if you have another Pokemon that could lower Alakazam's defense even more. Alakazam's already a glass cannon, so it set you up in a good spot to possibly be able to take it out. It also learns Double Kick, so it's not like Rock-type Pokemon can just come in and expect it to be an easy fight, because Double Kick will give it at least a chance to do decent damage. Not great damage, but decent damage. So if you had a situation where you had a rock type against you and its damage was in or its HP was in a certain range, you could, after a feint or something, switch in your Jolteon and use Double Kick in order to take that opponent out. So even in more competitive playthroughs or more competitive battles, for example, it would have some sort of coverage that could actually help against a variety of threats. Then, of course, it has Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave, so it could spread paralysis. Anyway, that was my only favorite evolution as a kid. Here we have our Eevee. It's only at level 6 because it's part of the medium fast level up group. But we do have Tackle and Tail Whip. We're going to have to see, with Stab, is this enough? We're taking 6 damage from the Geodude, and we're just not doing enough damage. Eevee, in this version, does not start out with Sand Attack. And because it doesn't start off with Sand Attack, we can't use Sand Attack strategies. We have to level up to level 8 before we get Sand Attack with Eevee. And that means our Eevee is out of there. Now, Eevee is the least evolved of the evolutions, obviously. And Vaporeon should be a different story, provided that it starts with a water-type move. This should not be a terribly difficult run, right? Because if we start off with water, then it makes sense that, you know, we've already seen with Lapras, with Horsey and Seadra, with Seeking, or no, Seeking actually, sorry, that was a confusion-based strat that we used in order to get through. But the Squirtle line, Starmie, anything that has a water-type move is able to get through. And we see it right there. We've got Water Gun to go together with Tail Whip and Quick Attack. And that should be more than enough to get us through Brock. Plus, we have awesome HP. As you can see, we've got 37 HP at level 6 because Vaporeon just has insane HP. Now, the other thing that Vaporeon had going for it in this generation, we may see later, since we'll get to continue with our Vaporeon, is it has access to Acid Armor. So it can increase its defense quite a bit. That's going to help not just with boosting our defense stat, but also later in the game with the Badge Boost glitch. Badge Boosts can't be avoided in this generation. If anybody's watched, for example, Jay Rose or Scott's Thoughts, they talk about this all the time, that Badge Boosts are just part of the game. I don't even really consider it a glitch. I consider it to be a feature of the game. Because if the opponent uses Leer, for example, on you, then automatically your other stats, other than defense, are going to go up based on whatever badge boosts you have by 12.5%. So if you have Brock's badge, for example, you'll get boosts to your attack stat. Beating Blaine gets you boosts to your special stat. What is it? Koga's defense and Lieutenant Surge's speed, if I recall correctly. But basically what that means is that when we use a move like Acid Armor late in the game, we'll be able to effectively badge boost up and make it so that our opponents not only do less damage to us, but our attacks do more damage. So Vaporeon, I think, has a good chance. And here against Brock, it's Water Gun. And we're able to learn Sand Attack now, so we will learn Sand Attack. And Water Gun. Easy, no problem. We took one hit because we're slower than the Onix, but otherwise, an absolute cakewalk of a run. Jolteon is next, and it is my favorite of the evolutions. But just because a Pokemon is my favorite does not mean that it's going to get through. We've seen so far that electric-type Pokemon really only get through Brock with some sort of gimmicky type of move. In the case of Pikachu and Raichu, we took advantage of the fact that through Pokemon Stadium, we can get a Pikachu or a Raichu that knows Surf. And that wasn't a special, like, you had to go to some sort of event, right? You just had to play Pokemon Stadium, which was pretty common in Generation 1. Lots of people were playing that game, and the idea was, okay, you play Pokemon Stadium, you defeat the challenges with a Pikachu in your team, and you are able then to get a surfing Pikachu. And of course, a surfing Pikachu could just be put on any game, and a Thunderstone could turn it into a surfing Raichu. That was the gimmick that allowed them to get through. And we're going to see that that gimmick is pretty powerful in this generation, because even when we get to the late game, think about this. Places where they would be walled, for example, by Giovanni and his rock types. Not if you have Surf, right? So that single move is going to make those Pokemon really, really special. And the reason that I chose to include that, on top of the fact that it's available in Generation 1, is that in Yellow version, after Koga and the Fuchsia City quest, there is an additional little house that allows you to do a surfing minigame with your Pikachu, provided your Pikachu knows Surf. So it was clearly intended by the developers of this version that Pikachu would have access to Surf somehow, and because of that, there's no point in resisting that and not using it. Now, Magneton and Electrode have also been able to get through Brock, but the way that they got through Brock was with another gimmicky move in Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom allows them to do a set 20 damage per turn, which turned Brock's Pokemon into 2-hit KOs. Outside of those Pokemon, we've not seen any electric types get through, and Jolteon here might be in that boat, because it doesn't have a moveset that's really going to give it much of an advantage against Brock. We're going to go ahead and try it. But at level 6, 29 HP, we're using Tail Whip. We're going to use some quick attacks. We got a critical hit there, which is not really what we want when we're using Tail Whip. And we get another critical hit and another critical hit. Because our speed is so high, we're going to get critical hits like crazy here, which also doesn't help us. But we're just not doing enough damage. And we don't have any move that can really break through these rock-type Pokemon. And because of that, Jolteon is out of there. I hate when my challenge rules cause me to lose one of my favorite Pokemon, but it really can't be helped. So we just have to move on to Flareon. And now Flareon, as we've seen, the evolutions all start out with one stab move on them, as well as the more basic moves of Tackle, Tail Whip, and Quick Attack. And Flareon is going to get Ember, I believe, and that may be the move that allows us to get through. Yep, there is our Ember, and we already know from the Magmar run, from the Arcanine run, from the Ninetales run, from the Charmeleon run, that the key here is going to be to get our burns off. If we can get burns in the first couple of turns against Brock, we are going to have an excellent chance to get through this battle. Just because Burn is so good against his Pokemon. The place that we're going to have to really consider how to progress is going to be when we get to Misty. This is a Pokemon that almost certainly will not be able to take out Misty when we first get to her, get to Cerulean City. I would expect that our moveset just isn't good enough. The other issue that we're going to have is that we can't get Body Slam. Body Slam is trapped behind a trainer in the SSN. And because it's trapped behind a trainer, we have to beat at least one trainer in order to get it. It violates the rules of minimum battles. So we don't have a choice to get Body Slam. So what can we do in order to get through Misty? We may have to use Bite. We may have to think about some other strategy when we get there, because Misty Bubble Beam is going to take our Flareon out pretty easily. Here we are against Geodude. We just saw we got the turn 1 burn. We got an attack miss. We got another burn. And there we are. We're already through Geodude and leveled up to level 8. Of course, we'll learn Sand Attack. In fact, here, I think we're just going to Sand Attack against this Onix. Then let's use some Tail Whips because we can. I think with that combination, this is going to be pretty consistent run. There's the burn, and there we go. We're through. Sand Attack might be the strategy that we have to use against Starmie. And the issue is just going to be that Starmie is incredibly fast. So we're not going to be able to... We're not going to be able to get the Sand Attack off before it attacks us unless we level up quite a bit. And because we're in a medium slow level up group, I'm not sure what level we'll be at by the time that we get to Misty. We will have a couple of rare candies as well that we could try to use. But that's going to be a pretty tough out. So we're just going to have to see how it goes with these fire types when we get to Misty. But today, we finished, out of 15 Pokemon, 5 were able to get through Brock. This is in spite of the fact that many of these Pokemon are some of the strongest in this generation. That's what we're coming up against as we get to the end, because Brock hard walls so many Pokemon. And with only 5 of 15 getting through, we are now dipping back below 50%. We played with 136 Pokemon, and we've been able to get through Brock with 66 of them. Not very great. And Brock is the biggest wall, I think, in this game. The next big wall I honestly think is going to be... Misty will be a little bit of a wall to some Pokemon, especially these fire types. But then it's going to be the Hiker in Rock Tunnel, I think, is going to take out just a ton of our Pokemon. And I think Koga will be a wall, because some Pokemon are going to get taken out by his Psychic using Venonats and Venomoth. And then finally, the Rival 5, Rival 6, when we eventually get there, are going to be huge walls to some Pokemon that otherwise I think could have a good chance to win the game. So, without further ado, let's finish this episode. Let's look at next week, our very last episode of Brock, episode 10. We have some uber legendary Pokemon coming in the next installment. We are going to start off with Porygon, which has a very interesting move in Conversion. Conversion allows it to change its type to be the same as its opponent, which means that we're going to be able to take on the rock typing. So now Tackle is going to do less damage. And then if we have Sharpen, I have to double check if Sharpen is a level up move or a learned move in yellow version. But Sharpen allows us to increase our attack, which would mean that we would be able to buff our attack and maybe be able to get through the Geodude by resisting its tackles while at the same time doing more damage with our own tackles. That's going to be interesting to see. Ammonite and Amistar both are going to have water-type moves, piece of cake. Kabuto starts with Scratch, and Scratch likely will not be enough to get us through. Kabutops, on the other hand, again, it's a level up. I think that it's going to have some level up moves, so it will likely have a water gun or possibly absorb that will enable it to get through. Aerodactyl has great attack, great speed. It's going to have a great critical hit chance, but its only attacking move is going to be Wing Attack, which is not an incredibly strong move in Generation 1. Is it going to be able to get through the Geodude? How is it going to deal with the Onix when the Onix is using Bide? That's going to be a pretty tough one. Snorlax, I think, has an awesome chance to get through not just Brock, but the entire game. Here, at the beginning, it's going to have the advantage of Stab Headbutt and Rest. Amnesia won't really come into play until we get some special type moves, but it will help us with the Badge Boost glitch, and it will help us when we build out our moveset later in the game. But access to Rest is going to be huge. It's going to be the only Pokemon, I think, that gets Rest in these playthroughs, because Rest, again, is behind a trainer in the SSN, so we can't go pick up that TM. But if we have Rest, we're going to be able to heal up. So even in some tough battles where we are taking decent damage from our opponents, because of our bulk, because of our ability to use Rest, we'll be able to get through those, I think. So I think Brock is actually going to lose to our Snorlax. Articuno, I think, is a shoo-in. Zapdos is going to be tough. Zapdos knows Drill Peck, which is good. It's a stronger flying type move. But then it knows Thundershock, and Thundershock is not going to have any effect. The only benefit that we'll have is if we can get to Onix, we could be using Thundershock when it uses Bide in order to avoid doing damage while it's using Bide and thus take no damage as recoil. Moltres, Fire Spin. It's going to be our first chance with the Flame Wrap, basically. We've already seen Bind, Wrap, Clamp, and now Fire Spin. I think it's going to have a good chance to get through. Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite all are going to be Wrap users, and that's going to give them a chance. Dratini might not have enough HP to be able to get through. Dragonair and Dragonite might have Leer at that point, and they might be able to tank just enough damage to be able to reduce the reduce the defense rather of the Geodude and take it out. Finally, Mewtwo. Mewtwo is going to get through. piece of cake. Mewtwo, I expect to be able to absolutely crush the entire game because of its superior typing, superior stats, superior move pool. It's got Blizzard, it's got Thunderbolt, it's got Psychic, it will learn Recover later in the game. It's going to have everything going for it. So it's going to be just the ultimate Pokemon. And finally, Mew. Mew is a uber legendary Pokemon. It has some of the best stats in the game, 100 in every stat. Here's where it's going to struggle, though. It starts the game only knowing Pound. And even in the fastest level up group, it's not going to level up to level 10. It's not going to get transformed before we get to Brock. So there's not going to be any like Pound and transformed sort of strats. That Pokemon is going to have a tough time, and we may see an uber legendary Pokemon that wasn't actually catchable in the game. And unlike our surfing Pikachu, you couldn't get it really in any way other than through a very special event in Generation 1. It's likely not going to get through. So if I'm a betting man, I'm going to go ahead and say that Omanyte, Amistar, and Kabutops will get through. That's 3. Snorlax is going to get through. I'm confident. So that's 4. Articuno is going to get through. That's 5. Moltres is probably going to get through with its Fire Spin. So that's 6. I'm not sure about Dratini. I think Dragonair and Dragonite will get through. So we're up to 8 Pokemon. And finally, Mewtwo is going to get through. So that's 9 Pokemon out of this set that are going to get through. My best guess. What do you think? Comment down below. Let me know which Pokemon you think will be able to get through Brock on minimum battles. And that will do it for today's episode. So thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and join us next time for the final Brock Minimum Battle series. And I'll present at the end of next video how we're going to proceed when we go on to Misty with all of these Pokemon. So like, comment, subscribe. You can give a thumbs up if you liked it. You can give a thumbs down if you think that I did a bad job. If you think that any of these Pokemon didn't get a fair shake, let me know. Okay? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Your black market love me. She checked her halo at the barroom door. As the night bleeds, masquerades, ya no puedo resistir tu amor. I know